sound of Earth, Wind & Fire, one of the greatest bands ever to do it, from their last album, Illumination, and that is Love Together featuring the brilliant Raphael Saadiq. And welcome along to another edition of Jean-Claude in Conversation with. You know the dealio. We invite a guest into the studio. We talk about great records and music and their life. And that leads us to this edition's guest, a young man I met back in 95, I think it was, when he was doing a club night on Sunday nights with his then partner, and they were doing a club night at Bar Rumba. Soon after that, launched their label. They celebrate now 25 years in the game. And you know, that's a hell of a feat, especially all things considered. And in those 25 years, they have put out some of the best compilations ever released on vinyl and CD, with some incredible projects, including projects with Masters at Work, artist albums by Jazzy Jeff, will.i.am, and, of course, the late, great JD. So I am, of course, talking about BBE Records, and I'm proud to be able to have a conversation with my very good friend, Peter Adarkwah. How are you, son?
I'm good, thank you very much.
So it's 25 years.
Yeah, you get less for murder, wouldn't you? It's been an interesting period. Lots of ups and downs, of course, music being music. But I think my happiest moment in music as an adult, which was kind of like that 88 changeover period when, you know, everything was the second summer of love and all the rest of the stuff. And it was really, really great at that period. But, you know, doing events kind of wore me down. Too many late nights. And, you know, it's just like, it messes up your rhythm. It's nice to go out and obviously play records for people and stuff, and that's fun. But yeah, after a bit, I thought it's better to listen to records at home.
So it was never about being a DJ, I guess, then, for you?
It kind of was and not, but I think if I went further back, I was telling you before we started recording that, you know, I spent 8 years of my childhood in Ghana from 75 till 82, 83. And, you know, it was mainly cassettes for me at that point. My mum did have some records, but I don't recall finding any record shops in Accra to go to and buy records. Not at that age anyway. I wasn't living anywhere near the centre of town, so I couldn't do that. So my granddad had records, mixture of stuff, everything from, you know, the Beatles, through to whatever High Life records and stuff, and then my godfather is actually Mac Tonto from Osibisa, who I think went to school with my dad. So there was music around, and next door to my grandparents' house in Kumasi, no, not in Kumasi, sorry, in Takoradi lived a gentleman by the name of CK Man, who I used to call Uncle CK. But, you know, see, he's a formidable high life recording artist. So there was always music around. And, you know, other family members, you know, parts of different bands, etc. and stuff. So music was always around. My mom was very much a soul girl. Teddy, Isaac, you know, Marvin, that, you know, in Motown and Philly, but probably a heavy lean in towards Philly. You know, she went to see James Brown at the Hammersmith Apollo 1971. Billy Preston.
Did you tell your stories about the gig?
Yeah. I mean, just like, you know, it was like a time for them to dress up. She'd probably been in London probably about maybe somewhere between 10 and 7 years by that time. And yeah, she liked to go out with her friends and have a good time.
Yeah, because in those days you dress up to go out.
Totally.
To go clubbing.
Yeah.
Best clothes, right?
Yeah. And
no jeans and trainers business. In those days, you wouldn't get into a club. You wouldn't get into a good restaurant.
Yeah.
You wouldn't get into the theatre.
Yeah.
Unless you were dressed well.
Yeah.
You made an effort.
Unlike me.
No. But it's how we are today. I mean, you know, if someone's walking around with £1,000 trainers, who are you going to tell me I'm not coming into your club?
Well,
I'm wearing £1,000 trainers.
And they're probably making more money.
Yeah. And I'm wearing ripped jeans that cost me $2,000. So you're going to tell me I can't come into your club?
Yeah. Times and styles change. So
very much so.
All of that happens. So yeah, that side of it was from my mum and my dad. you know, more straight-ahead guy, you know, pre-electric, you know, Chet, Thelonious, Miles, obviously.
So jazz man.
Oh, totally. Through and through.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Art, Blakey, you know, the works, yeah. Yeah.
Lovely. And he was obsessively into this, or is obsessively into this music.
Yeah,
still.
more so. I mean, that's what you're going to hear if you go to his house and listen, and there's music on. Not so much these days. I haven't really stumbled into him, but if he's got the radio on and stuff like that, then it will be, jazz.
Awesome.
Definitely, yeah.
Awesome. So you and Ben got together and you started, Ben Jolly.
Yeah.
You got together, and how did you meet?
I was playing at a club called The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, which was promoted by a good friend of mine, Mac. I was going to say his full name then, but no one's ever known that. Well, most people don't, so I'm not going to do that to him. And Norman J was playing there, Brian Norman, the Boogie Boys, Thad, Derek, a whole bunch of people, Fitzroy, a whole bunch of people played there. And I kind of came in towards the latter part of it. And this would have been, I can't remember, 91, 92, Grayson Road. I don't know why I'm pointing there. It's not anywhere near where we are right now. So that was a good time. But Ben was working for the guys who supplied the sound.
Okay.
And he... we would get talking in between sets and whatever and stuff. And then, we started just thinking that maybe, we should be doing something ourselves. I was at uni and had a whole bunch of people with student loans who just needed something to do and had money to, a little bit of disposable cash. So I'd bring along, 50, 100 people every time I DJ'd. So that's what kept me popular at that time. That it's most of it. People think it's sometimes it's about how good you are as a DJ. A lot of times it's about how many people you can bring
to the party.
To the party. And I did my best on both sides and got things going. And I figured that there's enough people enjoying what I was doing to carry on doing that. But anyway, going back to the Ghana thing, it was like a lot of cassette making for people. So I like the music you like, and Ghana for me at that time as well was especially, Gap Band, Rick James, Raphael Cameron, the things, Slave, the things that were on the radio, which we're getting a lot of play on Ghana radio at the time.
Yeah.
So if my mum had come to London, brought back the record and whatever stuff, I'd make a copy on the cassette because I could then take it to someone else's house or listen to it and stuff like that. So, it just kind of developed from that. But the funniest story, I think my dad said to me, one day he was like, oh, I don't know when you're going to stop buying records, but, because my records are mainly at his house in the spare room. And he said, well, it's not really much of a surprise because when I was 3 and people would come round to the house, I'd get on my little stool, grab a record, and then play music to people when they came in. He didn't tell me this until like last year, I think.
Really?
Yeah.
So the apple didn't fall from the tree at all?
Yeah, not far at all. So it was there, and I was obsessed with these things. And, I guess at some point I kind of thought, I could put things together in a way that will make things palatable for people. And that really came from the time of... DJing at The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, because you play stuff. And I noticed that, people were dancing. That's one thing. The second thing is people will come up to you and ask you, not necessarily to play something. That's, I think, probably more of a latter phenomenon. But it was, oh, what's the name of this record? And, and it might be, I don't know, Gwen McCrae or whatever it was. And, you start realizing that people know the songs. They will sing to them, but they didn't maybe necessarily know what the records were called or the easiest way to find them. And then coming out of that 88 period when certain things started to become more expensive again, and to me it was like, if you could package a compilation for around about that 20, I don't know, whatever they were back then, 15 to £20 mark, it's a lot cheaper for someone to consume that than to buy, 10 records that each cost £15 each. The problems we had at that point in terms of compilations, as you would know, would be the main, apart from a couple of things like Journeys by DJs and Mastercards, the only real legitimate things out there were Telstar comps and things like that from before, which were the worst pressed records. There's like 20 records aside. Yeah. You might only have 2 records that you really wanted anyway.
Yeah, I mean, the only comp of that whole Rare Groove thing, of course, were Des Parks' Rare Groove, Volume 1, 2, and 3.
But up to 5, I think it did.
Yeah, but unfortunately, again, they were...
Too many songs on the
one side, which is what wasn't Des's fault.
No.
Because that's what they, the budget
they should have been double albums.
All the way, absolutely.
So,
but absolutely, up to your comps, Des's was the only ones that were legit, because there were so many bootlegs out there.
Yeah.
I mean, the amount of bootleg comps, I mean, people watching this cannot imagine, but bootleg comps was a thing.
Yeah, full on, loads of them.
Strictly Breaks, all of those.
Yeah.
We love them.
Yeah.
We've got them all, but they're booties.
And that's not even the problem, because it helped as part of the education process.
Yeah.
I think the issue really was that most of those things you couldn't play in a club because there was too many songs on one side and they weren't cut loud enough. So, it's at the point where I'd spoken to Bob Jones about doing what became the first comp on BBE, because I used to love his shows and etc. And then
Stop, Look and Listen.
Yeah, Stop and Listen.
Stop and Listen. No.
Which, when he was on Kiss, etc. and stuff, and then getting to see him at the Blue Note and stuff, and seeming like the perfect candidate, crossing old and new and stuff, was, getting to the first place where we mastered the first comp, was understanding that you couldn't really go over 15 minutes aside because the volume automatically drops down. And therefore, to get, a decent amount of songs, maybe an hour's worth of listening, or, and I guess that's probably why lots of albums were like around about that 45-minute mark, was just that, you could split them over 4 sides and then get a nice loud cut that you could also play in a club and it'll be loud enough to do so. But I think, I have to say that Mastercards and Ian Jewis and stuff like that, they got it right with that. And they were, I ended up being distributed by the same company, mainly because Mark Webster wrote an article about me, or BB, a Stop and Listen one in Blues and Soul, and B, the one of the directors at Mastercards, Beechwood Music, that's what they're called me up and then asked me if I wanted a distribution deal. And that was kind of like maybe 3 months after the first record. So then, kind of set things up. But before then, just because it feels like it's a trip down memory lane, I'll mention Mike Slocum, who at Goya was the first person who was distributing BBE before this happened. Because it was just around the corner from where I was. So I'd take records in the back of the car and then, apart from do the circuit of the M25 and then drop records off, Mike was one of the first wholesalers that took, in decent quantities and pushed them out there.
Yeah. So let's talk about your first record.
Right.
Parliament. Now, I know you, and people that know you know that you have there's a thing with you and Parliament and the whole Mothership connection. Yeah. And you've chosen this lovely little 7-inch. Tell us why this track in particular. Well,
I would have chosen Mothership Connection, but I think I've kind of done that one.
Rinsed
that one. So I'll go with something that's sort of very relevant still now. I mean, it's talking about the Vietnam War, essentially. But the same things that people complained about then are still pertinent today. Like for me, George Clinton was just like a musical life giver, from, following his trajectory from doo-wop all the way through to, Atomic Dog and, this crazy man in this silver knee-length platforms sat on a silver saucer and just singing about stuff which, didn't make sense and, kind of reinventing funk and calling it P-Funk and just an attitude. And it was kind of like a way of life. And, it was, before, not before, kind of with an entanglement with James.
Oh,
and then, massively with Maceo and
because Maceo,
Brecker Brothers
Maceo, they're on
and
there.
Bootsy
Yeah.
and everyone else and stuff. And then, taking out the best bits of that, taking out the best bits of everything else, and then kind of like this space, trippy kind of funk world. It just resonated with me.
Do you remember when you first heard Parliament or Funkadelic, either or?
Definitely in Ghana, 100%.
You would
We've
have
got
been
the
how
funk.
old?
I
got the
would have
funk,
been
okay.
about 8 or 9, I think.
That you were conscious.
Conscious of that song, totally. And this was the Mothership Connection album was one of the first records that I owned, but it was given to me by my mum. And
Wow.
so that obviously has a good sort of memory of my record, even though she hated me spending money on records. At some point where we were in Berlin, maybe 10 years ago, and then I walked into a shop and I was looking through some records and someone came up to me and said, are you Pete from BBE? And that's when, after that, my mum started telling everyone, oh, my son is a record producer or whatever and stuff, But it wasn't until, people said stuff in public that, all of a sudden she kind of realized. But even though, I was looking after her and whatever and stuff, that was a moment that it changed and she kind of felt that I was doing something worthwhile.
Shall we play The Great Parliament?
Yeah, please.
Taking you back to 1972, the mighty Parliament, and Coming In Out of the Rain, 7-inch Business. Lovely jubbly, Peter. Thank you for that.
No problem at all. Glad I found it.
Can you remember which album this came from?
I believe it was an album called Renium, which I think was more of a comp than an album.
Okay.
Of some of the bits and demos and stuff I think they did for Westbound at the time.
Okay.
And that was on a 7, which isn't so easy to find these days.
I guess not. Lovely jubbly. And moving on to your second choice. A man I know is very close to your heart because I know you know him quite well.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you're going to have some stories for us.
Oh,
Roy Ayers.
Incredible
We
guy.
live in Brooklyn. Tell us all. Tell us all.
Well, I think for me, sort of in that kind of, glorious London period of the mid to late 80s. Well, I wasn't really having any disposable cash until about 16, 17, and then starting to buy records. But that for me was one of my first grown-up records that I ever owned. The cover alone, the kind of mystique of the way the cover was. And then, obviously before that, Running Away, everything else, people, those were obvious sort of things that were very popular in London. But this record just had a certain mystique for me. I think he had this 10-year stint, 1970 to 1980 on Polydor, where he did 2 albums a year. And I asked him what that was like. And he was like, I get a check, 300, 400,000 an album. Go out there, go to Electric Lady, knock out an album. Now, as you know, and people watching probably know that I did some of the unreleased stuff with Roy Ayers. And I went to his house, which is his apartment, which is where James Baldwin used to live. And then he took over that apartment. And then, he had a storage unit in Harlem. And so between those 2 places, I saw most of the tapes of all the stuff. The 2-inch tapes, not the...
The original 2-inch tape of this album, you've seen it?
Yeah,
You've touched
I've touched it. Yeah. You know.
And any of the other Ubiquity albums?
Oh, yeah. The one with Life is Just a Moment and all that stuff there. I even had the instrumental of Ethel Beatty, which I have lost. I transferred it. I had it on the CD, and it's just gone. It went walkies. I have no idea where it is.
Oh, man.
I played it once at Plastic People. That much I'll tell you, and that was it. I don't know what happened to it. Maybe it's in one of Ade's CD players or something. I don't know.
Oh,
but yeah. So you'd see the tapes, and it's like Electric Lady. You know. December 21st, December 22nd, December 23rd, December 24th. You know, just go in there and just record relentlessly, and different takes of stuff, and, you know, stuff that didn't get used. And what he had was a production deal with Polydor. So whatever he didn't submit to them, he owned. And the bulk of that is which came out as Virgin Ubiquity 1 and 2.
Right.
But this is something that, you know, I think Harry Whittaker wrote.
Indeed.
And
Laura Jones on vocals.
And then worked with on this track. And just so ominous, though, that intro is just...
I mean, imagine from 1972 to 77, that's 5 years, 10 albums, just as Ubiquity.
Yeah.
And then there's all the other bits and bobs that he's working on at the same time.
Yeah. And whatever he
What
produced
an
for other
output.
people.
What an output.
Yeah. Sweet Tears.
Come on then.
No point talking when Roy's ready
When
to
Rory's
go.
in the room ready to bust one,
Yeah.
let me just line this puppy up. Staying in the 70s, 1972, from the phenomenal album He's Coming, Roy Ayers' Ubiquity, the first of 10 albums under the Ubiquity moniker that were recorded from 1972 and 1977. That is what you call a serious output. And we're playing it off the 7 because neither of our copies of the album were clean. But Dynamite Cuts, a label that... Malachi Trout gets a big shout out for a series where he has taken tracks that were only ever on albums, that never appeared on 7 or as singles, and this is one of them. And he's done an amazing job, including Steve Parks moving in the right direction, is now on a 7.
Yeah.
Yeah, lovely jubbly. Yeah. Thank you for
Incredible.
that, Peter.
Yeah,
lovely. So what is one of your most endearing anecdotes about Mr. Ayers?
Oh, God,
I mean, there's so many.
Yeah, I don't even know where to start. We did lots of... he told a story about going to drinking water from a water fountain when it was just like, you know, there was separate ones for black people and separate ones for white people. Mm. And he said someone told him off for drinking at the white people fountain. And he said something like, you know, I don't like colored water either. That's why I'm drinking this one. But, you know, it was like stories for days. I mean, he's a little bit frail now, so you don't get as much sort of fluidity from him. But yeah, I'm trying to reissue those Japanese only albums at the moment. And trying to keep the legacy going as best as I can with him too as well.
Yeah, interesting character. So we're moving on from one great character to another one that you were very close to over the years, Mr. Yancey and Slum Village players.
Yeah. So, Dilla, Kenny Dope, one of my I would say mentor, even though I'm slightly older than him, and he's just a fountain of knowledge and a great connector of people. He called me up one day and he was like, "Oh, you need to get out to tonight or Dilla's going to be in London soon, so you should go check him out." I was like, "I love him. I love what he does." I think the Slum Village album was coming out, and they were doing an event at Subterranean in London, in West London, and so I grabbed some of the early comps and stuff from BBE, took him to meet him, and just before they went on set, and gave him the records and said,
"Was it the three of them?"
Yeah, it was the three of them. It was like super early released, the Groove Days and stuff. He was like, "Oh, this is great," and I was like, "Look, big fan. I really want to do something with you." And he's like, "Sure, here's my manager, Tim Maynard. Speak to him." And we spoke literally that evening at the hotel and agreed a deal to make what became Welcome to Detroit. I didn't have any way of paying for the record or knowing what I was going to do after that. And, worked it out. There's a bit like a Robert Townsend first film, credit cards.
But hip-hop don't stop and all those compilations already been out. Kenny's
they've been
box
out.
set had been released.
But the box set had come out, and I think Stop and Listen 5 had happened with him.
Yeah.
Kenny ended up introducing me to a bunch of people, and varying degrees of, sort of things came out of those situations.
Mm-hmm.
But this is one of them that I'm clearly very eternally grateful for. I went to Detroit to see him. I think in between that trip, I think I went to Japan, and I got a copy of this, which was before this album got signed to Virgin.
Mm-hmm.
And it was something that definitely, I think if I'd been, probably a little bit sharper, I would have probably signed this record too as well. But one of my favorites, the break on there is just insane. It's a cappella album by the group Acapella on MPS.
That's right.
Their version of Claire. But it's
which was originally by Gilbert O'Sullivan.
Yes, indeed.
Mr. Floppy Cap himself.
Slow down, very much, and just the way he put it together,
twisted.
Just very, 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 very clever. But he was a great guy to be around with. He'd call me up, come and hang out at Baramba, and just go record shopping and stuff in London, and it's a bittersweet thing because I spoke to his mum last week, and she just said, "You don't know how dear he held you as a person," because I was the first person to say, "Do whatever you want." Yeah,
so
I knew he played.
Going back to the album, which I'm sure people are really interested in understanding, what was there a concept behind? I mean, apart from the title, "Welcome to Detroit," what was the umbrella? The idea of it.
Well, basically, I mean, obviously on Mama's Gun, he played bass, and he. When I went to his house, the basement, and, I was going through the records, and then I saw a couple of other BBE things on the wall already, which he'd had before I even made the connection with him. So that was like, oh my God, it was destiny, it was bound to happen. But going through the records on this side, and I'm just imagine this is a room, there's a wall of records there, then there's records there, then there's the MPC and the SP and stuff all set up on this side. And all the records on this side going along this wall and stretch were sort of psychedelic, funk, jazz, and a lot of Brazilian records. And then a small section on the back wall of hip-hop records. And we talked about the records on this side, mainly. And I played African Rhythms from the Wonders of Juju album. And he was like, "Oh, what's that?" And I was like, "Oh, is this a tune that was like, big in London and stuff?" And he said, "Oh, I bought it from someone else." And then I said, if you wanted to do, he's like, I think I could do something. I'm like, sure, if you think you can, go for it. I'll just call up Kareem. He'll come and hit me up some drums. I can play the bass on it and stuff. I'm like, go for it. And he's like, really? You want me to do that? And I'm like, yeah, I mean, you can. If you can, why not do it? But you don't have to just do what it is. I mean, I think for me, when I sort of developed the concept of this beat generation thing, mainly because it all came from Kenny. And he probably was only one of the ones that wasn't like a weed smoker and stuff. But, in my head, I made this tenuous link to Allen Ginsberg and co. and people, kind of smoking, listening to different things, or having different influences, and then creating something else different out of what they were normally, people expected. And they led this new movement. And for me, for most of them, my attraction to hip-hop was through the producers and the music that they made, what underlaid the music. It wasn't so much the rapping and stuff didn't really stick, but if someone made a nice beat, that got me more. I'm the kind of person who might have bought to a hip-hop record just to listen to the instrumental and see how, that whole pastiche thing of how things were pieced together. That was for me
one
more
sample
exciting.
Starts and where another one finishes.
Yeah, and even how they're intertwined and stuff, and what made someone think, oh, that's the part I'm going to use for a song. Yeah. And I just think he did that so much better than so many other people that did it. Definitely in the top 5 of people who were manipulating records to create something new.
Pete Rock.
Yeah.
What they would do with the sample. Just thinking of the Tom Scott sample.
Yeah, exactly.
What a clever use. Yeah. Clever use of the sample. And the use of, like you said, Claire and the way it's slowed down. And not only slowed down, he's shifted the pitch slightly as well. Yeah. Very, very clever because he's made it sound like it's players.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's not.
And he played instruments and he actually knew how to be in a band, and then produce stuff and then take it to somewhere else. And then, but, with that was just to kind of show, I mean, I think I really liked hip hop but there was also, I think, out in it's something that the critics probably saw as one-dimensional. And I didn't feel that it was, because most of this music was coming from jazz, it was coming from soul, it was coming from Brazilian music, it was coming from African records. And I think if it was that one-dimensional, people wouldn't be looking for influences that were so varied. And that was basically, I guess, the real purpose behind engaging someone like him to do a record.
And for the 25th anniversary, of course, you put out the box set.
Yes.
With the extra bits on it.
Yeah, so House Shoes, shout out to my brother. He came through with some extra bits and pieces. Not that he had them, I just got to say that for the record. He found someone, he knew someone who had them, and he facilitated that.
And was Mrs. Yancey happy when she saw it?
Very, very, very happy. I mean, we conducted a big interview with everyone that was part of the whole story.
Wonderful.
Then, and I spent, whenever I can, I spend time with her, whether it's if I go to Detroit and stuff, or at least on the phone. And she's been very, very supportive of everything that happened with him and his legacy. And
wonderful.
Stuff, so.
We'll send her our love when you next speak from all of us, because he's madly sorely missed here.
Yeah.
Shall we play a little bit of Slum Village?
Yes, indeed.
788 D10, just like Jake the Snake. Actually, we don't participate, but if you do, then I'ma see you at your weight. Don't let the drama fluctuate. I don't wanna, I gotta. We cooking steaks. Now where would we be at if we let you do that? We probably be laying on our racks. Talking this and that. You playing? It was whack. I never would play myself out like that, but I guess that's where you at. And I'ma play this game for you. What I'ma do is like call out your hoop cause your crew likes to bite us. Y'all stick to freestyling cause y'all ain't no writers. Tryna be something and can't play the game. See you sound the same, man. You claim to be something you ain't. It won't be without SB. That's right. Y'all need to be smacked open hands.
You think I give a about this? You all up in my face over some hoes. Just come on. You wanna be with my clique? You must know, really, how wild I get when I step in the place saying yes, yes. There's some people who don't really wanna see the S. Personally, I can give a less. Check your lady, she's your groupie. Opening a coochie. Fuck. Outta unit the vote. When you front, it's inspirational. You and you, you and you.
Taking you back to 2000 from the album Fantastic Volume 2. That is the Imperial Slum Village featuring the late, the great JD, a.k.a. James Yancey, a.k.a. The Dilla. And that is Players on a Japanese 12, don't you know? Very nice. Ooh, lovely. Let the people have a look. Aye. What a great use of a sample. My word. So we're moving from Slum Village. We're moving to your hometown. Mr. Frimpong.
Yeah, Alaji to you.
To me, Alaji Frimpong, exactly.
Alaji K. Frimpong.
Yes.
For those who
Hajj.
don't understand, it's an honor that you get bestowed on you when you've completed your Hajj, which is your pilgrimage to Mecca.
What's the story between you and this amazing tune?
I wish I had a story that was related to him, but I think he passed away by the time I would have had any chance to meet him. But obviously, my family are from Ghana, and I felt, there's always been a strong relationship with Ghanaian music. Like I said, Osibisa, Mac Tonto, and being my godfather, and several members being family friends, and alongside all the sort of Cameo and Gap Band and whatever else I was listening to in Ghana as a child, there was also the Ghana being a British colony, style of music is different to the Francophone sound. High Life probably started in about the late 50s or with E.T. Mensah, and then moved through different people through the sound changed in the late 60s. Then more the Edward Taylors and that kind of people came through. And by the 70s, obviously everyone had gone more electric. And a lot of the songs are really about love or being heartbroken or a long journey to the woods to find firewood or whatever, kind of more folky records, palm wine records as they call them. But High Life, like a lot of things in the 70s, evolved. For me, this record, I think the first time I heard this was on a trip to Ghana in the early 90s. My auntie had a CD in her car, and it was kind of like one of these weird things where I'd already booked the trip to go to Ghana. I hadn't been for a long time, and I think 2 days before I was due to travel, my grandmother had passed away, and so we kind of like when my mum's doing the preparation and stuff for the funerals, and anyone who knows any Ghanaians or any West Africans, and I imagine the culture is quite... there's a lot of similar things that lots of different cultures do for funerals, but that's one of... It's probably bigger than anything else, funerals, which is almost a little bit weird because people kind of put more emphasis on your life when you're gone rather than when you're around. And, I think much like, the Irish and stuff like that, there's, death becomes a festivity.
A celebration
of life, yeah. Which is a common phrase that you see on the sort of obituaries written across when you drive across the country. And, there's lots of drinking and there's food and celebration and stuff like that. Anyway, I heard this record, which it just kind of blew me away. The drums on there, the way it's recorded, I think it's just unusual to find High Life records like this. And I think probably the funkiest High Life record by none. I know Ade, Plastic People, loved it. But I mentioned the Colony thing because this is a record that, the Nigerians also know. Just because of the beat. They may not understand the words. And, there's so many different dialects in Ghana, let alone, crossing over to Nigeria. But the one thing that we do have in common is Pidgin English and a false rivalry of jollof rice, which neither of us invented, but will claim that there are...
What is the story? What is that? What is this battle?
I think it's from Senegal, jollof rice.
Oh, really?
Or Cameroon, one of the two. But it's definitely not a Ghanaian or a Nigerian thing. But when there's weddings and there's funerals and stuff like that... It's all about the jollof rice.
It's
all about the jollof rice, and you can cook it with, meats or fish or whatever your preference is. And it's formed football and jollof rice are probably the two big things, on this. Now, I also mentioned Nigeria because I could have played a record from Nigeria. And there's a good few records, but one I would have played would have been a fellow record, Zombie, which was political at the time. I was in Ghana when that record came out. There was a coup in Ghana in 79.
Absolutely.
It was topical. Then, soldiers would beat you if you sang it at their faces because it was all directed at them being kind of like, the zombies of the government and causing chaos amongst people's lives and stuff.
Yep.
But, honorable mention to him. There's no disrespect to my Nigerian people, but I had to go with the Ghanaian record. Chinchembiemu.
Is that how you say it?
It's more about, he's, in the bit he talks about, it's sort of unrequited love.
Taking you back to 1976, the sound of Ghana and K. Frimpong and his Cubano Fiestas. I'm not going to do this justice, but I'm going to give it a go. Chen Chen Bia.
Amau.
Yeah, it's not happening. I need to be going to live in Accra for a while.
Well, yeah, in Ghana in particular. But it was funny, I was telling you, I think yesterday before, about this record when I was trying to find it, my dad's, and I was lucky to find one in this condition, which I'd met a guy in the market, in the major market in Accra, and he was just peddling like records that were in like condition that you there's no use for anything really. And I said I really wanted to get some good quality high life stuff. And he said he knew a guy in a town called Winneba and he'll be over soon. And for the first time in my life of looking for records in Ghana, he turned up with a flight case of records, which one, you never see the records even with their sleeves or the sleeves remotely intact like that, let alone in this flight case, which was some guy who basically had to just sell his records because he couldn't find a working turntable anymore.
Okay.
And that's how I ended up with a copy in relatively good condition.
What else was in the box?
Some Pat Thomas, some Ebo Taylor. There was a bunch of other stuff. I can't
some good
remember.
stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, go on.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for that.
Did like 90 or so records or so. Yeah.
That's a lovely, lovely thing. So moving on to another late great.
Yeah.
And a guy that we all hold dear. And this album has been cited several times on the show already. And that's Prince, Sign of the Times. And for me, arguably the best track on the album, The Ballad of Dorothy Parker.
Absolutely.
Tell us your story with this album, Prince, and this track.
Well, I think, with all the music that you've asked me, when you said to me you wanted me on the show, I thought, for me, when I think of like favorites and stuff, it has to be real favorites from a long time back, not just stuff. There's new favorites you find along the way,
Every day.
discovery and stuff. Yeah, every day. But I think I always revert to kind of this childlike sort of happy place of, music that feels like a cuddle and stuff that, you either in some instances purchase first time around or just the first time you discover them, they form some of your fundamental memories and stuff. Prince, I genuinely remember I Want to Be a Lover when I was in Ghana. That was something my uncle would play and then my mum too as well. And I'd never seen what he looked like until I think 82 or something. I came back to London and I saw what would have been out then. It would have been Little Red Corvette or something on MTV. And then I finally, and I started listening to Voice, and I was like, I wonder, and I listened to other stuff, and then I found out it was the same person who did I Want to Be a Lover. Fully fledged Prince fan, I ruffled shirts, polka dot, everything.
Really?
Oh, I absolutely insane.
No, you've never shown us those photos.
Because
Because those photos I would like to... Don't tell me, nobody took any photos.
I don't think anyone did. I wouldn't have destroyed them, but no, they don't exist.
That I'd love to see.
Oh, yeah, no, totally. But it was a person...
Eyeliner? Did you have the eyeliner?
No makeup. No.
Okay.
No. Just the music, really. Yeah. And then a little bit of clothes and, just... And the splits and stuff. So the Dominion Theatre was showing it in
Tottenham Court Road.
Tottenham Court Road, showing this in London when it came out. And I think I must have seen it 10 times.
Jesus.
Bought the album. But I think the first time, I skipped through the record and heard this record, it was just something about those muted sort of drums and, his drum programming, which, was just insane. Now, it reminds me of a funny story about how Rick James stole his presets on his drum machine and made "Give It to Me, Baby" from that because he said he couldn't just do the drums the way that Prince did them, and you don't really think about drum programming in that way about music from that period. And normally the focus is on hip hop producers and what they did and what machines they used. But even back then, a lot of them used I think the Linn drum machines and stuff and created the sound, even though he was a great drummer himself and worked with great drummers and stuff.
Sheila and all the crew.
Yeah. Made this record in there, which, it just kind of felt like a letter to someone. And, just the mood and the energy of it and the sound. And of course, you mentioned that with hip-hop producers who sampled this, so De La Soul used that song. I don't know whether they had to clear the sample because, it was notoriously difficult about, giving permission to people to use his music. Pete Rock on the Lords of the Underground, Flow on the remix, also used that really well. But I lost track of how many times I saw Prince live.
Did you catch him at the last group?
Not the latter gig so much, but I definitely ran about this time. In the end, I don't think he did a show in London of this, but Love Sexy, I saw that incredible concert he did at Wembley Arena in the round. So he had the car come on stage and then go round on this. It was just an insane setup, And then, the next one he did like a completely stripped down, no gimmicks, nothing at all, and just rocked for ages. Then I saw him at this theater in, I forget the name of it, by Blackfriars Station. And it was when he did that album, wasn't a great album, the first one he did on Arista. And then Clive Davis introduced him.
Okay.
And there was, 100 people in the room and stuff. And he came running. He was like, walking past people and then picking them out to sing along with songs and stuff. And then he came by the side of me and I was with Kiri and he stood there for a minute. Yeah, one, it was just kind of like, I shouldn't really be getting weak knees for a man. Well, I could, but, it's not.
But your tummy definitely...
Yeah, like really, generally, And then I was like, on the other hand, I'm like, I love you, but please don't call me out because I won't remember the words to anything. And luckily, he just moved on and carried on. But just being that close was amazing. And but I did have a chance to go to Paisley Park, which unfortunately I didn't go because I'd booked the flight to come back from America, and then I didn't want to miss my flight for some reason. That now I would never have. I would have just changed my ticket and just gone.
I had his card.
Yeah, really?
Yeah, because I did a private party for him.
Oh, okay.
In fact, I did more than once, but this particular party, his road manager was a really nice guy and came and stood beside me. I was DJing. And basically, Prince would only get up and dance to stuff that was either by him or involved with the people that he was involved with. So Time, Shiggery, all those records.
Yeah.
I just had them all in the box, luckily.
Yeah.
Played them, kept them up on the dance. As soon as I played, James Brown he danced to as well.
Yeah.
And then the tour manager was really cool, big guy.
Yeah.
And came up to me afterward, through the evening. We were chatting this, that, and the other, and Prince was in the VIP just beside me there. And I was busy DJing and trying to get his attention.
Yeah.
Mr. Rogers, I'm over here, darling. And the tour manager said, when you're next in the States, come and see us. Gave me the card.
Yeah.
And it stayed on my mirror in my bathroom for ages and ages and ages. And then I had to move out the flat where I was. And when I moved, and the first thing I looked for, I lost it in the move.
Yeah.
And I hate myself. Every time I play a Prince record, it's like...
Well, when I was doing the Beat Generation stuff, I was in Philadelphia, Jazzy Jeff and whatever, and those guys. And then Dilla would fly back and forth because he was working with James Poyser a lot. And then one day they were like, him, Questlove and stuff were like, we're going to, and Common was there too a lot. They were going to Paisley Park to work on a track on Common's album. And they're like, why don't you come? And yeah, I wish I did. I might have had a crazy Prince story about ping pong or basketball or something.
Him taking you down in his high heel shoes.
Yeah, exactly. One zip.
Let's play some Mr. Rogers, shall we?
Yeah.
Dorothy was a waitress on the promenade. She worked a night shift. Dishwater blonde, tall and fine. She got a lot of tips. Well, earlier I'd been talking stuff in a violent room, fighting with lovers past. I needed someone with a quicker wit than mine. Dorothy was fast. Well, I ordered, let me get a fruit cocktail. I ain't too hungry. Dorothy laughed. She said, sound like a real man to me. You're kinda cute. You wanna take a bath? Do you want bath? Oh, I said cool. I'm leaving my pants on. Cause I'm kinda going with someone. She said, sound like a real man to me. Mind if I turn on the radio? Oh, my favorite song, she said.
Taking you back to the sound of Minneapolis, the late, great Prince from his phenomenal album from 1987, sign of the times on Paisley Park, and that is the anthemic Ballad of Dorothy Parker. Absolutely just love that track. Always have done, always will.
Well,
of course,
yeah.
there's other it's a great album.
Yeah,
but
yeah. I think that was his pinnacle for me as well. I mean, they're great records as well. You know, Parade, For You, and a whole bunch of other records. But he was just such a cool character. And the stuff he wrote for other people, you know, and everything else that he was involved in, you know, it was Jamie Starr or Alexander Nobody or whatever other pseudonyms he did.
And those the Vanity album.
Yeah.
What a great album. Sorely missed.
Yeah, indeed.
But left an amazing legacy for us to constantly go backwards and forwards over. Amazing. And we move to Jamaica, Queens, I think, isn't it? Isn't that where these bad boys are from?
Yeah.
Don Blackman.
Don Blackman.
One of the greatest albums, an album I could talk about and tell stories about all day long when this record hit.
I think
here
for me, one of the greatest albums made from top to bottom. Just incredible. And, you know, I met him once when he was in town to play at the Jazz Cafe. And I had to ask him, you know, what happened after the album? Did you do another album? And he said, well, basically, Clive Davis hated the record. And he was so devastated that he just couldn't bring himself to record another, you know, get himself together and suffered a massive breakdown and couldn't really get it together to record another album, a follow album to that.
Really?
Yeah. Totally rejected the album, and I think it got overshadowed by something else on its release. And, you know, cult following in London is not enough to give you a career. You know?
Yeah, because it was only released, it only came out as an import, was never released over here, and there was a German pressing, which is what I'm playing it off. Yeah. And that was it. I mean, no singles, no radio play. I mean...
Well, there was that kind of EP, the 4-track thing that they did.
Which Arista always did. They did the same for GQ, and they did the same for Bernard Wright as well. But yeah, no push.
No, none whatsoever. They just weren't interested.
So you only heard it on Greg Edwards, and you only heard it on Robbie Vincent and the DJs of that ilk of the day.
Yeah, who would play it and whatever and stuff. And, you know, or the blues dancers, you know, rubbing up against the wall into the pot wallpaper, you know, scraped off the wall.
Yeah.
And of course, you know, it was on the Des Parks rare comp, the not House Desire, the other one, Holding You, Loving You.
Yeah. And how come you've chosen this over Holding You, Loving You, and what's the other great track off this?
There's everything, you know. I could have taken you Heart's Desire, you know, I put that on a comp. The other one's been on other comps. But this always, like, you know, I think it was just a nice, bouncy groover, which, you know, I'm not saying didn't get any play, but it was just, for me, like, I could listen to it over and over and over again. The whole album, I've lost track of how many times I've listened to that record. You know, so it's
And where would you, when would you have first heard this record, do you think?
I think I would have first heard this record around about 84-ish. Yeah, shortly after it came out. And then I found my copy, I think, of Mr. Bongo when they were down on Berwick Street in the basement before they moved to Poland Street. Just an incredible record. It's just, like I said, one of those happy place records. And, you know, there's other records I've bought that I love, you know, immensely. But this is just like childhood memories.
I'm gonna sing this song for you. Yet I've been so many places, yeah, to see you smile makes me happy. There are times when I'm feeling down and out. So many things are on my mind. I can tell you something without a doubt. To see you smile makes me happy. Love to see you smile. Takes a bit after a while. Look into my eyes and see. when you play. There's so many things that one can do.
Taking you back to 1982 from his self-titled album, Don Blackman. Never miss a thing. What an absolutely badass piece of music. So we're moving on to another great, Chaka Khan. Tell us, why this album, why this track?
Great album produced by Arif Mardin, one of the great producers of black music. And I think, well, from that whole 70s period. And I had the pleasure of meeting him very briefly in New York, and while he was working on Norah Jones's album. But moving on to Chaka, I think she's just such a great, iconic vocalist of sort of my childhood, and still even up until now, still working. But just such a great voice. I'm not really. I've played songs. I've chosen songs for today. But essentially, I'm really more of an instrumental person. But her voice is just like another instrument. She's just wonderful, and I love her.
And of course, like all the great singers, the thing about the great singers is nobody else sounds like them either side.
No, there is no other.
No one
Chaka.
sounds like Aretha.
No.
Chaka, you can tell her voice, just like Billie Holiday, just like Amy Winehouse. There are these voices. Ella,
yeah.
Nina Simone.
Yeah.
And Chaka is definitely in that. And I've always had a very, very soft spot for her because, of course, when she was a teenager, she was a Black Panther.
Okay.
And she got involved in the Black Panther movement.
Yeah,
she was very young. Yeah. And she used to hand out leaflets, because we all know now, of course, the truth is out there that the Black Panthers were not an armed revolutionary group like everyone was talking about. They were, trying to feed the kids, trying to get them educated, get them hospitalization if they needed it, because none of these things were given. And she was out there giving leaflets and going door to door and doing the rallies and, through the church. And yeah, she's got a very special place in all of our hearts. And like you, I think she's absolutely incredible and such a unique talent.
Yeah, and there aren't that many of them, at the end of the day. There's a lot of people who've made records, and some people have made, there's a lot of music that we buy for one track and stuff. Yeah. It's very rare that you find someone who you can pick out, 5, 6 albums, and there are a hell of a lot of winners on there. And she, bless her, is up there with the best of them.
From the album Naughty, that's What You Did, written by Chaka Khan, and features on this album Clouds, which is, of course, famous, is one of the big tracks on the album, but it was written by Ashford and Simpson, who were in-house arrangers and producers at Warner Brothers at the time, I guess, now, because that's when they're signed. And produced by Turkish-born Arif Mardin, who is Warner Brothers legend, along with Ahmet Ertuğrul and all of these guys. The whole Turkish contingent.
Crew, yeah. You wouldn't have thought so, but conventionally.
That's a brilliant record. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, and it's just one of those things that sometimes you buy albums for a couple of tracks, and then, one day you just let the record play. I mean, you sort of rinse out the same old over and over again. Then you let it play one day, and you're like, why on earth did I not give this a chance in the beginning?
Yeah, because, of course, we all went for Clouds.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, and then Moving in a Mountain as well is on the hair version of that is on there too as well. So, yeah, but gotta love her.
You know. So we're moving to 1988-89, the king, the maestro of rap.
I think so. I think that's a fair
Big Daddy
assessment.
Kane.
I think it was a full package, Kane. You know, he had the attitude, he had the dancing, he had the storytelling. I think he was the best of all time.
Incredible. And did you ever meet him? Have you ever
Yes, I've met him a couple of times.
Oh, really?
Yeah, no, I had the pleasure of him working on the Marley Marl album on BBE. I had to get him on there. That was, you know, Marley, for me, again, you know, what he was doing with the whole Cold Chillin' crew and the Juice crew and stuff was just, it was a coming of age time for me. So Biz, you know, MC Shan and everyone else and Roxanne Shante and everyone else on that label. But Kane just kind of took things up a notch.
Apropos Roxanne Shante, who was one of my heroines, what ever happened to her? I mean, they had the Spate of the 12s, the couple of the albums, which were huge. She was the preeminent. There was her, Queen Latifah,
Yeah.
a couple of others.
Yeah.
They were like this Moni Love. You know, there was this crew of female rappers,
Yeah.
MCs, who were absolutely killing it, equal to the boys. What happened with that whole female element of it at the time?
At the
Any
time,
idea?
I think it was just very difficult because it was a very male-dominated world. I mean, and the girls, you know, held their own at that time. But I think life got in the way for some of them. I think, you know, trying to have a family and then carry on doing that was something that kind of it disrupted whatever they needed to do. And then I think by the time Puffy came along and they kind of changed, you know, the emphasis probably went away to there became more girl groups or posse things, and you know and then the dynamics changed drastically at that period. Hard to pin down exactly what it was, but I think maybe it would have been the old-fashioned sort of algorithms where they just kind of went for sales over.
Yeah, because I remember asking a preeminent A&R man of one of the biggest labels in the world, who's been a customer of mine for years, and I said to him, you know, I wanted him to sign T-Love. Do you remember T-Love? And we had a good relationship going, and I wanted him to sign T-Love, and he wouldn't sign T-Love, and I just said, why won't you sign T-Love? And he says, female hip hop just does not sell.
Yeah.
And you know, my argument was, well, Missy Elliott, what? And he just said that's just a one-off.
Yeah, and I think they feel that there's only room for one.
I was
at a
outraged,
time,
by the
but
way.
Yeah,
This was
I'm
many
sure.
years ago, and
Yeah.
I was absolutely outraged. I'm not sure that we'd have that same conversation now with everything that's been happening over the last couple of years. But
Probably not. Well, it wouldn't be as blatant as that, but I think people, you know, especially in major labels where, you know, as I understand, most of them have the model of everything has to sell 500,000 and above, otherwise it's a failure. So if you can't hit those numbers, and even if you hit 500 and you don't have the scope to break through to a million seller, then I think it becomes really difficult for them to keep you on.
yeah,
Well, that's the way they've developed their models.
Yeah,
Whereas there should be some intermediate ground where you allow for development and growth for artists.
yeah. I mean, back in the day, we sound like a broken record, but you know, they had development departments. You know, where they were the big stars, and then you had the development artists.
Yeah.
Where all in the beginning, maybe all they're doing is writing the old tune, or if they're musician-led, playing sessions on big albums.
Yeah.
And then slowly but surely they're brought in and they're doing their thing. But that's completely gone. It's gone from zero to hero, and there's nothing in between. There's no grey area anymore.
And I think that's the difficult thing as well, especially when you're trying to break an act in America, is that you have to kind of pick and choose your battles. So maybe do, you know, New York, Philadelphia, Chicago, Detroit, California. And you know, everything else in the middle is a bonus if you manage to crack any of those territories. Maybe Atlanta, you might do. But then they have a slightly different sound for the best part. So, you know, you think about how big those territories I've just named are, and to have an effective campaign in any of those places.
Yeah, I mean, some of those states are bigger than the whole of the United Kingdom.
Yeah, population-wise and stuff. So
Yeah.
it becomes really, really difficult. And I think people's careers, and I'm not saying this to justify any of that at all, but there's pressure on the A&R people to have a hit. And if they don't have a hit, just work the hits that they have.
Otherwise, no salary.
No, basically.
Big Daddy Kane sitting there warming up. Shall we? I can see the smoke coming off the deck.
Antonio Hardy, one of the best to ever do it. Yeah,
Shall we?
Go for it.
Oh, man.
You little bum, I take the cake, but you can't get a crumb from the poetic, authentic, superior, ultimate, and all that good shit. I'm the original Asiatic, acrobatic, there you have it. Now get dramatic, creating drama when I'm on the scene, and I pack 'em in mean like Bruce Springsteen. I provide a style is mild, and meanwhile put on trial a rap pile of exile, make it tumble and stumble, and a rumble just crumble, and I'm still calm and humble. You need another helping hand to swing on. I stand alone, but still you gotta bring on your Batman and Robin, Cagney and Lacey, Starsky and Hutch, but they still can't face me. And if I may make this one thing here clear, that's for you not to come near, period. For I ain't bugging or delirious. My swift tongue's like a sword, that's how severe it is. And I can slice and dice a Fisher Price MC that thought he was nice into minute rice. Single-handed, I ain't with that band stuff, cause see I scratch a record like flakes of dandruff. And the mic I ravage, not like a savage, but in my own way of doing damage, as I design a genuine line. Now who flat top rules in 89?
Warm it up, King. 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 Warm it up, King.
King of the flat top. And he says on the back here, thank you to my main man, Rick James. Wow, you know what I'm saying? Big Daddy Kane, Warm It Up Kane from the 12-inch. Came off his second album. It's a Big Daddy Kane thing on Cold Chillin' Reprise Records. And yeah, baby, that was us. Did you have a flat top?
No, could never grow my hair high enough to get one of those. But I wanted to. I guess he was what I wanted to be. And that's why I think I loved him so much. You know, the dancing, the jumping through the leg and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And then, of course, it was like in that Madonna book and stuff, the one she did where, he was all...
The one where she's kissing everyone?
Yeah.
Oh, is he in that?
Yeah.
Okay.
The kissing one of the one, he was in one of them anyway. The black and white one.
That's the one where he's showing his beautiful torso. Yes. I know that image. Big Daddy Kane. And so he's healthy and he's
healthy and well.
Yeah?
I haven't spoken to him in a minute, but Marley I do speak to quite frequently, and he's doing well.
Good.
He's come through a lot, but yeah, he's doing really well.
Yeah, hell of a partnership.
Yeah.
We're coming to your penultimate record. A record I know I've sold you because I think the price ticket's still on this copy. You talked earlier about your dad's love of jazz.
Yeah.
So I guess that this is a record that basically is in your dad's record collection.
Yes.
Yeah. So we're talking about Art Blakey and the Jazz Messages. Now, I'm surprised, not surprised, but I'm surprised that you were able to isolate and choose one track because I know that you were a huge Blakey fan.
Yeah.
And you've bought a lot of Blakey albums over the years.
Yeah.
And I know you're going to be, in his case, a completist, right? Basically.
I'm trying to. I mean, there's a lot. He made a lot of records, so it's going to be.
So why the Bobby Timmons? I mean, apart the fact it's an amazing record and Bobby Timmons is on here, but how come that there?
Well, I just felt that I feel with this record that Bobby Timmons playing on there is just so amazing. There's kind of incredible beauty in how he plays and the tone of how he plays and stuff. And I know he was a very pained man and had lots of, battles with addiction and stuff. It just says somehow, some records talk to you. It's hard to explain sometimes and somehow. Yeah. But it's again, that with the energy and the sound of Art's drums, and the mood that encompasses, it's just like I really wish. Unfortunately, I never saw Art play live, and I really wish I'd.
You never saw him at Ronnie Scott's?
I never did, and I can't explain to you why. And it's one of those things I just kick myself about. I really wish I'd seen him. I just think he was just so incredible, and it's just the energy and the songs, ping pong, and and then again, and so much stuff he did that was just incredible, and it was just. Again, it was just like there's not many drummers that you hear and you just hear and it's them.
You can with Blakey, yeah?
Yeah. Yeah. We just know it's him. The energy is just incredible, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know, everything about him is just like, for me, it was just like amazing. The name, the drums, the look, you know.
And he's a bit of a bad man.
And a bad man too as well.
Wasn't he?
You know, yeah.
Not stretching that story any further.
No.
For those that know, we know,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
He was a bad man.
Yeah.
It's like, raw,
Yeah.
really? The
And-
drummer.
yeah.
The drummer.
Yeah, yeah. And somehow there's always this sort of endearing appeal to, you know, as bad as it is, and there's some, you know, things you can't...
The counterplay.
You
Yeah.
can't sort of condone some behavior, but, you know, somehow out of it all, some great music came out.
Yeah,
of
I
it.
mean, you were saying about Bobby Timmons, and then you think about Bill Evans. You know, when I listen to these guys play, especially the pianists, I find it really difficult to visualize that they're completely wasted because of the way they play.
They sound so together.
Thank you. You took the words.
Sound so together.
Right? Now, when you hear maybe Sun Ra, on one of the Sun Ra albums, the ones that are all discordant, you would imagine
Yeah,
that the
they're
whole band are
completely
completely
off
wasted
their
on
faces
acid,
up.
when of course we know the company rule was anyone even smoked a spliff with
You're
Sun Ra,
out.
you're out.
Yeah.
And then you have these guys like Bill Evans, and you see them, and they're leaning over the piano, and they're leaning into their drums, and they're doing their thing, and Charlie Parker.
Yeah.
And then you read the books in their lives, the stories, and the Val Wimmer book, and then you read, out of his brain on heroin,
Yeah.
messed up on coke,
Yeah.
mainlining, got his face half blown up because he was freebasing.
Yeah.
And yet they play like
somehow,
angels.
You know,
I
like
don't get
him,
it.
Ginger Baker, whatever.
Yeah,
stuff.
Ginger Baker.
There's like so much energy and power in the drumming that you can't imagine that you can do that if you're like off your face.
Not to the point where they were. No.
Yeah, the stories and stuff that we know about.
Okay, let's play a bit of Bobby Timmons and a bit of Art Blakey and the Messengers. Taking you back to 1960s Blue Note, Lee Morgan, Wayne Shorter, Bobby Timmons, Jaime Merritt on bass, and the great late Art Blakey on drums from the album Big B. Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers from their 5th album for Blue Note. And that is the phenomenal That There. And if you want to catch the vocal version, there's a great vocal version done by Oscar Brown Jr. that will absolutely blow your mind. A great jazz standard. Thank you for that. That is absolutely the bomb shakalaka and exactly what I needed to hear this afternoon.
Yeah.
Love
it's such
that
a
record.
great
Such a great record. My
And the
God.
ending of that, when like Bobby just comes back in to like wrap it up, it's just, oh Jesus, it's just incredible.
Yeah, it's
It makes a hair on your neck stand up.
yeah, it's sad how he died so young.
Yeah, really too young. Like he was in his 20s or something, I think, yeah.
Yeah, mental. Absolutely mental. Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers, which rounds us off to your last record of today's session.
Yeah.
We managed to get through it in one day. Rah, it didn't take a day and a night like I thought it might
A
do.
little bit in the beginning, but we got there. I mean, we flowed.
Yeah, And a group of guys that are very dear to your heart.
Yeah.
I've known them like you. I've known these guys forever and a day. Well, since 1994,
Yeah.
in fact, when they first came to London. And of course, I'm talking about Masters at Work,
Yeah.
aka Ken Lou. So the first release on Masters at Work Records, More Records,
Yeah.
Moonshine, over the Hillbilly song.
Yeah.
Explain to everyone, how come this of any Masters at Work record?
Well,
And take your time. We've got ages. We're done.
yeah. No, it's just such. I remember. I was going to say I remember the day this came out, and I think it was the same day that I came, do the normal Friday run through the shops, come by and see you and see whoever else in the other shops and stuff. And it was either this record playing or it was Mobb Deep, Shook Ones Part 2. I think they came out on the same day. So it was a great day for music, one. Two, it's just the way that the Gil Scott-Heron sample on this has been flipped. Just incredible. A bit of the crackle in the record. There's nothing wrong with crackle in records.
I'll use it in the effects.
Yeah. And just a wonderful job. And it's just like, Kenny and Louis are just both amazing. They've done incredible things. I'm wagering everything that it's a lot more of Kenny in this record than other records that they did together. But for me, I think, one of the best drum programmers across
Kenny's
the board.
the Don, isn't he?
Across the board.
Yeah, amazing.
Like his sounds and stuff are just incredible. That someone's doing that on the machine, to me, is just mind-blowing.
Yeah.
I'm African. I love drums. This guy just ticks the box on, from house. He's way ahead of the game in any house producers, any kind of, sort of breakbeat type stuff, hip-hop type stuff.
Beats.
Yeah, beats, breakbeat records and stuff like that.
Yeah.
This man is a don in all those fields.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, Louis amazing with arrangement, and he knows how to make the harmonies, fit together and stuff. And together, they've formed, the best electronic partnership, I think, of musical sort of electronic music.
Yeah, because Kenny's definitely gives it the rough.
Yeah.
And Louis gives it the smooth.
Yeah.
And, you
hear it when they work separately, and then you hear it when they work back again together. Honorary shout out to the Mattel, which they've just done again on a Casio machine, which is just rugged. I owe a lot to the two of them because they've done incredible stuff in their own right, and then they've done incredible stuff for BBE, and there's more stuff coming, from both sides, and yeah, I can't thank them enough. They've introduced me to so many people that have feathered the label.
Because with Louis, you did the remake of Barely Breaking Even.
Yeah, Louis did the remake of Barely Breaking Even. That's kind of.
How did that come about?
Well, we just talked about it, and I thought, for the 20, coming up to the 25th anniversary and stuff, I wanted some landmark titles that I could own. And the parts, unfortunately, for the original Barely Breaking Even don't exist anymore. Greg Carmichael, who produced it with Leroy Burgess, he disappeared with a tape, and nobody knows how to get hold of him. And Leroy, unfortunately, didn't have a copy. John Morales has the original 1/4-inch in his garage because he mixed the record, but he didn't keep the 2-inch tape for whatever reason. So come close to being able to be in a position to get that. And that was, Barely Breaking Even was supposed to be on the Log album. And then in the end, they didn't submit that record. So it came out on Moonglow instead. And that's, what, for those that don't know, that I chose, I love that record. I'm a boogie guy, like I said, and chose that for the name of the record, which pretty much was because of the parties. And, you did an event and sometimes you broke even. Yeah, but that song was just about living for the weekend, going out, having fun, whatever, forgetting about your worries and just dancing your troubles away sort of type thing. And, this is one of those records, not with that same message, but a great, I don't say dance records, it sounds a bit Billboard. A great future boogie, or something like, Paul Trouble Anderson will say, record that I think grabbed every DJ's imagination when this came out. It's just got the drums, I got the perfect bounce. You wouldn't think it was made on a machine.
I remember when it first came out, a couple of DJs. Where's the one? where's the one? There's the one's on the one, dude. It's
Yeah, exactly.
It's got so much slippage in it.
Yeah.
And the delay triggers and yeah. I can't. You've done it beautifully. So I think we will just let this do what it needs to do.
Yeah.
And let's play Moonshine. Ooh, 1995. That was a good year for
Yeah, it
house
was a
music.
very
Masters at Work.
Good year
Ken
for
Lu.
house and hip hop.
Oh,
yeah.
damn, that was a
Really
good year,
good.
wasn't it?
Yeah,
Moonshine,
amazing.
with an amazing sample of Gil Scott-Heron's live version of Home is Where the Hatred Is.
And can I just say
Yes,
that
you can.
I've been talking to Brian Jackson a lot lately, and there's a brand new album of his coming out on BBE early next year.
Shut up.
Amazing. And he
Shut
still
up.
has a couple of unreleased gems.
So with Gil?
Yeah.
Is that going to be on the album?
I can't say.
Did you hear that? Little
I
semi-exclusive.
can't say.
Wagwan. That's amazing.
Yeah. He's such a lovely guy. Really
That's
is.
amazing.
Yeah. And he's put some good music together.
And
so
did,
really happy
are
with
there any, for me, the most important album is the Johannesburg. Are there any outtakes from that album that never came, that no one's ever heard?
No, I think, the whole
That
kind
period.
of tape thing was just a bit of a mess and stuff.
I can
Lots
imagine.
of people either, just got rid of tapes and...
Yeah, taped over.
Yeah, taped over and stuff like that, or destroyed or whatever. So it's unfortunate that there isn't a great deal of material out there. But Brian also worked heavily with Tonto, which is that synthesizer that Stevie used for songs in the
Yeah,
Key of
Magaluf
Life
and Cecil.
Yeah. And so yeah, I mean the Secret album, Secret Eyes and stuff, that was all recorded on Tonto as well.
Ooh, my ears are all tingling now.
Trying to say as little as I can without saying too much.
Yeah.
but,
I mean, that's on TV, by the way.
yeah. Recorded for posterity. Yeah. But
Pete,
yeah,
thank you so much.
no, it's been a pleasure.
That was awesome. Thank you so much. Well done with the label. So proud to be associated with you over the
No,
last
of course.
20...
You won't do it, so I'm going to do it. So Jean-Claude has put together several amazing jazz comps and, an original, an original unreleased project by Billy Bang, which is also out on BBE. So big up yourself too as well for coming through every time. And there's more in the pipeline. So, we
can only do what we can do, right?
Yeah, we'll keep on going until they turn the lights off.
You know what I'm saying? Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
And there we have it. The journey into the music mind of one of the UK's truly visionary record label owners, and long may they reign. And as we heard from Pete, a little exclusive business, a certain Mr. Jackson's going to be releasing something next year, which I cannot wait to hear. So yeah, it's just been wonderful, and the journey's all over the place, as one normally expects. So it just leaves for me to wish you all the very best. Thank you for joining us on another episode of Jean-Claude in conversation with. And I'm going to leave you with a queen, an empress, a truly talented, and I've met a wonderful, wonderful individual. Marcus Miller featuring the inimitable Michelle Ndigicello. Until the next time, peace.
So very beautiful. I want to feel you creep inside me, the warmth of a kiss beneath my very skin. I want to experience the taste of dark berry nectar, the seed of life. Heaven everlasting, the phone just wants to